Welcome to the Slut Next Door podcast, where we dive deep into desire, unravel kinks and fetishes, and explore the deliciously naughty side of self discovery. I'm Beatrix Vale, an erotic audio creator, and your guide to all things kinky and curious. So let's begin. Hello, darlings. Today, we're diving deep into the world of cuckolding, one of the most intense and psychologically thrilling kinks in the realm of power exchange. And it is, I might even say, my favorite kink of all time. So I am super excited. So, have you ever fantasized about watching your partner or a potential partner with someone else? Feeling that mix of jealousy, arousal, and complete submission? What is it about giving up control that makes cuckolding one of the most electrifying kinks out there? So, in this episode, I'm going to answer what is cuckolding? I'm going to dispel common misconceptions. I'm going to answer why is it so hot and really dig into the psychological landscape of cuckolds. I'm going to talk about common fantasies and triggers for fans of cuckolds and end on my personal take of cuckold. Now, if you are new here, be sure to subscribe or follow so you do not miss any of my future podcast episodes. And if you're curious about my world of hypnotic femdom and erotic mind control, especially in the area of cuckold, click on the link in my bio and it will take you to lots of places where I post free and premium paid content within this topic of cuckold, even more themes of gooning, beta humiliation, mommy dom, all sorts of stuff. So let's go ahead and dive into this episode of cuckolding. So, what is cuckolding? Let's talk about a very basic definition of what it is. So, cuckolding is when an individual in a relationship derives pleasure from their partner having sexual relations with someone else. Now, I'm sure that's very confusing to some because they're thinking, why would I feel pleasure from having my partner sleep with someone else and not me? Well, my answer to that is this kink isn't for everyone, for sure. I think that it takes a very special individual to want to be in that situation and go through that psychological turmoil. But for people that are fans of cuckold, that kind of psychological turmoil is very arousing. So, and that's why I love talking about cuckolding. I love educating on it because I do strongly believe that there's a lot of misconceptions out there. And I'll definitely get into those. But I like to explain the kink because I'm sure from the outside, you're like, what in the ever living hell is this kink? How is this a kink? This sounds like pure torture. Now, I believe that, and this goes with all kinks, everything should be consensual. So, if let's say there's a married couple and this wife has been cheating on her husband for years, 3 years, and all of a sudden, 3 years later, she's like, "Oh, honey, by the way, I've been cheating on you. Ha ha ha." Um, and they didn't agree upon that. Okay, she's just legitimately cheating on him. Like, that's really fucked up to do. Cuckolding, when done right, is consensual. A husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend come together and talk about, hey, this would really turn me on. What do you think? And the other person's like, yeah, that would turn me on too. And they set boundaries, rules, expectations. So I think in some porn, cuckolding is portrayed as some bitchy wife who is like, fuck you. I've been cheating on you. You have no choice. I'm just going to fuck other people and you're going to sit at home like a good husband and get over it. Which that vibe does have a place. I mean, for some people, that's very hot. But in a real world cuckolding relationship, that is not what it is. It's not just inherently about cheating or betrayal, it is negotiated and agreed upon. So I believe that that's a big misconception out there. I think a lot of people look at cuckolding and they, for whatever reason, maybe they were cheated on in the past or they just have strong feelings about cheating and they're like, oh, that's terrible. Well, it's really not about cheating. It's a consensual play space. And yeah, it's not conventional, but that's why people like it. Some people are polyamorous. Some people have open marriages. Some people have cuckold in their marriage. It's not very common, but it is something that is valid because, in my opinion, if everyone consents, if everyone's having fun, if everyone like in the relationship is growing and becoming closer from whatever unconventional thing they're doing, then what's wrong with it? That's their decision. They both consented. No one is experiencing betrayal. Now, I think another misconception is that all cuckold is humiliating and degrading. There can be levels of cuckold that are very loving. And I know that sounds crazy, especially if you don't really understand it. And I hope by the end of this episode, if you think I'm crazy, maybe you'll think I'm just a little less crazy by the end. But some more loving, light cuckold relationships can be extremely intimate and very deeply erotic, where some are very humiliating, very degrading. It's very brash, and that's what both the people want it to be. And I should have started with this actually. I feel like I have some passion behind this topic because I have been in a cuckold relationship that was very consensual, very agreed upon, and actually very loving. And it did bring me closer to my partner at the time. And maybe I'll get into that later when I start talking about my personal take, but that's also why I think I have a platform to stand on because I have been in this kind of relationship. So I totally understand where every party is coming from the woman's perspective, the man's, and the bull's. And by the way, if you didn't know, oftentimes the man that has sex with the wife or girlfriend in the situation is often referred to as the bull, Bull, bull. um, so, with that said, let's hop into common fantasies and triggers. And I could probably go on for hours about different fantasies, different cuckold setups, but I'm going to mainly hit on like the main ones that are the most common. So the first one is actually, arguably not even within cuckold. It's the hot wife fantasy. So a hot wife is a wife or a girlfriend that has a husband that is very encourages her to take other sexual partners. And while he's around, it's not really humiliating at all for him. A husband of a hot wife is going to be right there cheering her on and just a very active participant. Hell, in some, he may even join in and fuck his wife as well with the other man or men. So you've got that one, the hot wife fantasy, where it's just, yeah, let's do this together. It's very fun and consensual. And it's pretty much just communicating, I'm loaning my wife out. She wants to be loaned out, basically. And I'm going to be there with her, cheering her on and being very turned on by it. And then you have the kind of, we'll call it a bull fantasy. So, where there's a man that comes into the bedroom and either the husband or boyfriend is watching or he's not even there. And let's say he may receive videos or photos, or maybe when the wife or the girlfriend returns home, they get together in their bedroom and she tells him all the dirty details and you know, so that to me is definitely more going into cuckold versus hot wife, because it has nothing to do with the husband and boyfriend there. And again, because it's just such a crucial thing, I'm going to remind at every step that this is consensual. It wasn't the wife being like, oh, by the way, honey, I just got home. I told you I was with the girls, but I was cheating on you. Like, that's, you can role play that, sure. Or if it was consented upon, sure, but it's not, nothing in a real cuckold setting would ever not be consensual. Then you go a little bit deeper into a cuckold relationship where you're like a cuckold husband or boyfriend, where that bull is engaging in sex with the wife or girlfriend, but at the same time, the cuckold, the cuck, is humiliated and emasculated, and that becomes a very highlighted, touched on perspective of it. So, the wife is getting fucked, and maybe the husband or boyfriend is in the room. And at the same time, she's humiliating him, teasing him, saying things like, oh my gosh, his dick is so much bigger than yours. You've never fucked me this way. Watch how he does this. It's very emasculating. And true connoisseurs of this kink want that feeling. And I'm gonna really dig into the humiliation aspect and make that make sense here soon. But that is a very sought after experience for a cuck husband or boyfriend. And then you can go even deeper into cuckold, where it's kind of like the husband or the boyfriend is a beta male, meaning he doesn't ever have pussy. Like, it is something that he will never have. He believes it, his wife or girlfriend believes it. And so he's going to be there supporting, but also humiliated, and let a more alpha, capable man have sex with his wife or girlfriend. And then, kind of tied to that, but also different, you've got cucks that really want to lean towards more like a beta sissy role. So it just becomes even more humiliating, him feminizing in front of the bull. So imagine a husband wearing lingerie or even just panties, looking like a sissy in the bedroom, where he's watching in this outfit his wife or girlfriend getting railed, and being very helpful. Do you guys need some water? Do you need, can I hold your hair, sweetie? Stuff like that. Um, so, yes. So then let's get into the triggers. And when I say triggers, I mean arousal triggers. So The things that really get someone who's a fan of cuckold really gets them going. So the verbal humiliation, I would say, is definitely one where, you know, like I said earlier, you've never fucked me like this, or man, he's reaching places inside of me you've never been. Um, oh, look, he can last for hours and you only last 30 seconds. It's and these are things that cucks long for. And it stings. And I'm going to get into that humiliation piece even deeper, why people crave that. But cucks want that feeling. That stinging feeling becomes a source of arousal. And yeah, they're feeling like a burn of jealousy and a burn of embarrassment, but that equals arousal for them. I would say that small penis humiliation comes into play with cucks a lot too. Oh, honey, look at how huge his dick is. Look at his next to yours. It's half the size. Those are really big triggers. Physical humiliation are definitely triggers for some cucks. And what I mean by physical humiliation, like the whole feminizing or wearing panties. In this situation, wearing chastity. Chastity is a big trigger for a lot of cucks. A chastity cage keeping a cuck's manhood caged up while the other man, is inside of his woman. Or you can do a whole tied down. So that's very hot to imagine. Okay, you're going to be tied down to this chair. You can't move. And you're going to be, forced to watch this man own my body. Very hot setup there, too. Another big, big trigger, I would say, for some, not all, is cream pie cleanup. So a lot of cucks really fantasize or even love the idea of a cream pie cleanup. And let me just say, I know some that have no want or need to ever, do anything by. They're hetero all the way through and through, but it becomes hot to them to think that, they'll become so submissive to their wife or their girlfriend that they would get between her legs and lick up the mess of sex from her pussy. So that's a very big, big trigger for some cucks. Some don't even want it. Dirty talk. I would say that's a big trigger for some. Because the beautiful thing about cuckold from a woman's perspective, and I'm definitely going to dive into this later, is the empowerment that a woman can feel in that role. You know, really having agency of your sexuality. You've got a man, having sex with you that is tearing your thing up in the best way. And then you've got this man that loves you that is so aroused, so turned on. It is such a headspace that is so intoxicating. It's wonderful. So, and part of that, when you're in that moment, like there are times where I did feel like some kind of, I don't know if I should say corn star. I think I can say porn. I don't know. But you get it. I felt like I was an adult video star in those moments. And, the things that come out of your mouth, like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and bring in some of the personal ties. I was going to do that till the end, but this will bring my point home. So I learned through that relationship that I had that when I would dirty talk while my bull was having sex with me, two things would happen. I knew that my boyfriend would just about cream his pants. Like, just hearing me talk in such a way, Like he loved it. It was so, make him weaken his knees. Love that. But then at the same time, I would dirty talk, and that would cause the bull to go harder, to really give it to me. And so two positive things were happening in that moment. So, and another piece, I think where I was going earlier, for the woman in the situation, you're really owning your sexuality in the most positive way. And you become so confident. I would argue had never felt that sexually confident, that things were coming out of my mouth that I never thought would come out of my mouth. And it was just so natural because I was so empowered in that moment. And I think that for a cuck, seeing their loved one, their wife, their girlfriend, in such a state of bliss, with filth spewing out of their mouth is just really a special moment for them as well. Um, Another trigger I would say in the cuckold space is interracial. And for some people, this gets, I think, what happens, I think what goes wrong are people bring political issues into sex and kink. And I think that should never happen. These are two different things, right? And, so people get offended. And I really leaned into interracial cuckolding and when I had my cuckold relationship, and I was very, very curious. I'm a natural curious person. And every man, every bull I had, we always had that conversation afterwards, just kind of, bullshitting together. And I'd be like, hey, so how do you feel? How does it make you feel to be like fetishized? How does that feel for you? Do you feel upset? Do you whatever? And every single one would tell me they love it. They like the kind of, it's almost taboo in a way to go there. They love being fetishized. Like, and I'm kind of in the space where, if you're gonna fetishize me, and it's respectful, then hell yeah, sure. But that's just me. So I'm sure not everyone feels that way, and that's okay. But it is definitely a trigger. The whole interracial cuckolding becomes a very hot topic, encouraged by very interesting trigger, and very hot in my opinion because I I love bi people. I love that people that can just be in a room. Let's say they're in a room and I don't know, someone presses a button and says, we're all gonna have sex. And they don't have to go to the opposite sex. They'll just have sex with anyone. That's super hot to me. But anyways, um, and for some cucks, it's very arousing for them to be encouraged to sexually service the bull. So for example, a wife saying, all right, honey, you're going to make him hard for me. You're going to get on your knees and suck him off. That's, the encouraged by aspect. Or, there's lots of other things you can do with that. That's a big trigger for someone because I think cucks are thinking, I'm being so submissive, so emasculated that I will do things that I normally wouldn't do. And then I would say another hot button trigger for some fans of cuck are the play on breeding. So, and I find this more probably like in the porn space because let's face it, we're all smart enough to agree that bringing a child into this world is like not, it costs a lot of money and it's a big deal. So I feel like becomes more of like a porny kind of storyline. But that's definitely a big trigger is, you know, my husband, boyfriend, he's always worn a condom with me. But when I'm with my boyfriend, he gets to come inside of me. That sort of thinking becomes like a super hot trigger for some. and kind of just like a fantasy, like, oh my gosh, like what if your bull got you pregnant? That's so hot, you know? Um, and like I said, I think that just becomes more fantasy porn because I mean, breeding is an actual big deal. Breeding is hot, but you know, in the real world, it's not hot. The reality that comes from that. And so all of those triggers, again, are not for every cuckold. You know, some may look at that list and say, I love all those things. Yes, give me all of it. And then there's some that'll pick and choose which ones they like, or they might be in the mood for this on this day, but might be in the mood for that on the next day. So all of those triggers are and scenarios aren't, they don't define a cuck. They are pieces of certain cucks, if that makes sense. All right, and now we're going to tap into why is this hot? And maybe I come across a lot of men that are like, you know, I love cuckold porn, but I never could do it in real life. You know, so it's something they find extremely hot, but like when it comes down to it in real life, they're like, no. And that's totally fine. I mean, what you watch in porn doesn't have to equate, I'm going to do this in real life. But I am going to answer why are these things hot and kind of like the psychological unpacking of it all. I think that cuckolding becomes something that is taboo and forbidden, meaning that in our typical societal norms, men are typically expected to be masculine and dominant. And typically, women are suspected to be submissive and feminine, you know, soft and ladylike. Where cuckold it flips that script. And cuckolding, the woman is doing very dominant things and they're acting very masculine because, you know, unfortunately we have this societal norm that women that sleep around a lot are just filthy, slutty whores. And, you know, men that sleep around is like, hell yeah, bro. You know, we have that. We all know that that exists and it gets better the further along in history we go, but it definitely is still there. Women get judged for being sexually open and sexually free. So in cuckolding, it really is flipping that script where the woman is acting very masculine, like she's very horny, wants to fuck all the time. You know, that's a man. That's typically something that men do. And, you know, for some cucks, they literally want to become pussy free, no longer have sex, but they'll support their wife having sex. So that becomes a very feminine kind of action. And plus, you know, it's taboo to say, hey, you know, Bob, what'd you do last night? Oh, I watched my wife get fucked. You know, that's pretty taboo. When you're married or in a relationship, you're supposed to be, you know, monogamous typically. So that becomes something very arousing for both parties, I think, when those roles are flipped and you get to, for a man, experience their woman being the more dominant one, the more sexually charged, you know. I think another reason why people find cuckolding so hot is there's that simple power exchange where the cucked partner, they're experiencing sex through erotic humiliation and submitting, where the woman is experiencing pleasure from the act of sex and the power exchange. So, you know, those are very unique positions and kind of really taps into the forbiddenness of it and the taboo nature of it that I was just talking about. I think it's hot for a lot of people too because it's a very emotionally complex kink. I would say that cuckolding is so complex in the layers it brings to the table, especially in the cuck's mind. I mean, you got to think a man that is willing and open and wants his wife to take other men, there's going to be naturally jealousy. There's going to be arousal. Okay, so you just think of those two things together. That's a really heady mixture. Like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I'm watching a man, have sex with my wife, but God, I'm so aroused by it. That is what they're trying to chase after. And then there's this thing called compersion is the joy of seeing a partner's sexual pleasure, like you taking pleasure and seeing your partner have pleasure. That becomes a layer too, where it's like, oh my God, I'm just so thrilled to watch my wife, have multiple orgasms, even if I'm not the one giving it to her. I just love seeing her satisfied. And that takes a very special person. I actually have done an audio that I call Love Letter to Cucks because, and this sounds absolutely crazy, but I believe it to be true. Cucks are the real fucking men because there's not a lot of men that have the balls or the emotional strength to watch their wife or girlfriend be fucked by another man. There's a lot of things that are being set aside for the sake of your kink and for the sake of your partner or whatever. And I think it takes a lot of balls. And it's funny to say that because a lot of times we're telling cucks, you're beta, you're inferior. That's why you're not having sex with me. And here I am saying you've got the real balls. And I totally mean that. I think that like I could never do it. I could never. Oh my God. I would be throwing things. Um, if I had to sit there and watch someone I love have sex with someone else. But I'm not built that way. And so that's why I say it takes a special man. And who knows? Who's to say that's a whole study. What makes you that way? I don't know. Um, but I think another reason people find it so hot, cuckolding, is the intimacy and connection. And that might sound crazy to you, but I'm telling you, I felt I felt so close to my boyfriend that I cucked. Like I felt like we experienced things together through me having sex with men and sharing that with him that were so unique. And I know that sounds weird and it's hard to explain, but it's like, it's the psychological roller coaster that I think both people go through. So I'm sure for him, it's like, holy shit, that was so hot. I felt so many stings of jealousy, but oh my God, you look beautiful. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, I felt like a goddess. I felt like this sexual goddess, it was so fun. So I think it's, experiencing these very unique things and then you come together afterwards. And it's almost better than the sex itself on a deeper level. It really is. But yeah, it just deepens the connection. It creates excitement, and this is going to sound crazy too, but it deepens your level of trust. I had a swingers couple tell me once, and it just really like opened my eyes, and I'm going to totally mess up what they said exactly, but what they basically said is, you know, he was trying to explain, I love being a swinger because you know what? I don't hide anything from my wife. Like, if I think that the woman walking by is hot, I'm going to tell her about it. And then we're both going to talk about that woman together. Where if you are in a relationship, like, and you're monogamous and you don't talk about things like that, I'm sorry, but I think that men and women are always going to kind of look and check people out, you know? And so if you're not in that type of relationship, you're holding that back. You're not going to say that out loud in fear of hurting your partner's feelings because there's an expectation, you know, that when you're in a relationship, you're totally monogamous, blah, blah, blah. But I think we are, you know, at times sexual creatures. Some people just look good and that's all it is, right? Where when you're in these unique relationships, there's nothing hidden, you know, because you've gotten into such a habit of being so honest, that, you know, it just creates this deeper level of trust that's very unique. Now, for men that are inside of a cuckold relationship, I'm going to talk about what men, you know, what makes a hot specifically for men and then women. So for men, the erotic humiliation is something that is being sought after. And like I'll have a whole episode soon on erotic humiliation because it's so fascinating to me. There's this interesting thing that happens with people where, you know, something that hurts, like jealousy or being degraded or, you know, a certain characteristic of theirs is being teased, that those things being like touched upon by someone else turns into arousal for them. And that's so fascinating when you think about it. You know, there's something that hurts them, you know, mentally, but that immediately turns into sexual arousal. So cucks are really seeking after that. And I think that comes from a couple things. I think that some people are maybe naturally psychological masochists. You know, they really go after the mental anguish for whatever reason. Um, and I think that for a lot of cucks, it's extremely pleasurable to release pressure to be dominant. Like, let's say that a man is, you know, high up in his job every day. He has to be a boss. He has to make decisions, you know, maybe a family man too. You know, there's a lot of pressure there. So when it comes to sexual situations, it becomes arousing in itself to sit back and take off those layers of being dominant. And I think for some cucks too, they have felt in their past, and maybe it's all internal or maybe it's both. I think that there's some, you know, confidence issues in sexual performance and their dick size and, you know, how, you know, erectile dysfunction, all these things. And so cuckold is finally a space where those things become they're owned. There's an ownership where it's like, yeah, I got a small penis, but you know what? My wife's gonna get fucked by this dude and I'm gonna fucking love it. um, and that's the interesting part of humiliation because I think that erotic humiliation is the one time where someone's personal the things they don't like about themselves, like let's say small penis, becomes something they own finally. Where in other situations, it's something they're embarrassed about, they're thinking about, you know, they're paranoid. Oh my God, is she going to make fun of my penis? Where hey, if you come out in the open and say, well, yeah, I got a small penis, you want to talk about it? It becomes like, well, yeah, I'm owning this small penis. And now, now I'm going to receive erotic sexual attention, just not in the typical way. Like this woman's going to give me attention with my small penis, where, hey, she would probably laugh at it if I took it out in front of her to have sex with her. So for men, I think that erotic humiliation with cucks is, I mean, big time, big time. Unless you're like, I just want a hot wife. I just want to, celebrate my wife being slutty. But other than that, all levels of cuck to me are centered around that humiliation aspect. I think that there's probably some cucks that have some voyeurism in them, as in they love to see things they're not supposed to see. They like watching. And then not only watching something they're not supposed to see, what they're watching is their loved one, the woman that they are madly in love with, have sex and be slutty. That I think that is a layer for some. I think that the role reversal for men is very appealing, where masculinity and femininity is flipped. So the woman is doing more masculine things like being open with her sexuality, being dominant, being the one in charge, where the man gets to take on more submissive female roles, as in stepping aside, um, just being supportive, being servicing his woman, servicing the man, if that's your thing. So yeah, I think that those are things that are specific to the men in cuckold relationships. Now, women, I'm sure, and I've actually had this question because some of my long-term fans, if you will be curious, why do you like cuckold, Well, here's why I think there are, and I'm not, I know I can't be the only woman. There's got to be, and I know there are. I know there's other women that are into cucking. There is a sense of empowerment that is so heady, and I talked about that earlier in the episode. It is so, God, it's so empowering. And that's a big thing for me in times of my adult life when I have owned my sexuality, where I've owned being hypersexual, the moments where I'm like, yeah, I was a slut and I loved it. I feel the most empowered. And that may be me, flicking the finger to feminism in a way, but also at the same time, I feel like I am being a feminist. I am being a feminist in that moment because I'm saying, you know what? I am a woman and I fucking love having sex. um, I do feel like I am being the strongest feminist in that moment. So I think for women like me that are very comfortable with their sexuality, they can see and experience the empowerment that comes from cucking your partner. A cuckolding lifestyle lends itself to being able to explore sexually in a safe place or safe space where you've got, you know, your husband or your boyfriend that would do anything for you, basically, metaphorically holding your hand through these sexual scenarios, and it's consensual and everyone's on the same page and you get to spread your legs and fuck really hot guys with big dicks. um, what's that sounds like heaven to me. Um, I think for women too, I notice this with myself. You, you get to be an exhibitionist. And if you're not an exhibitionist, then it's probably not for you. But I love, and I learned this later in life, like I really, really like being watched sexually. It really turns me on. And I feel like that is a big thing when you're a cuckoldress is you're showing off basically to your loved one, your boyfriend or husband. And it places you at the center of sexual attention. You're getting attention from this bull, and then you're also getting that special cuck attention. It's just, yeah, it's pure exhibitionist bliss for that. So now I'm going to talk about my personal take on cuckolding because I can't talk about cuckolding without bringing in my passion, which I've already done throughout this episode. But, for me, it's cuckolding gives me like both sides of the coin because as I believe I mentioned in my first episode where I talked about, who I am, I I started, in my sexual journey in my, late teens and 20s. I thought I was submissive. And then I really made a switch in my 30s. And now I'm like, I don't want to be sexually submissive to anyone. But I am a size queen. I learned that later in life. I really like big penis, like a lot. And so that's the only time I feel sexually submissive. And I'm talking like huge. Like I'm not talking like average. No, I don't want to be sexually submissive. So, it's really nice to feel that way. But at the same time, I'm getting to be, the dominant woman that I love being with a cuck. So, I get both of those sides in one. And that's just perfection. And I feel like I don't know if there's studies out there, cuckold studies, but I would assume that every cuckoldress is a size queen. So, there's that. Um, you get to tap into that, and that's just fantastic. There really is something about making fun and teasing a man's penis that I never gets old to me. Um, it truly turns me on. I think it's just again goes back to that empowerment and makes me feel so good as a woman to deflate a man's ego and even better if he's turned on by it. And I promise I don't hate men. It sounds like, yeah, I get to, beat up men psychologically. I don't hate men. It's just fun. It's fun to be on the dominant side. Again, why I say I'm a bit sadistic. I think my sadism is more mental than anything. I love to tease. I love to tease. And when I say tease, not just like seduction tease, but also like a little humiliation tease. It's so hot to me. I also feel like, and some people might say, you are crazy, but I'm going to stand on my toes and say this. I feel like cuckold totally exalts a woman up because it's like you're standing proud and saying, yes, I'm a slut. I love having sex. I love big, huge penis. I, I just want to have sex and I'm going to feel good about it. And my husband or boyfriend is going to sit there and take it. And I just feel like it puts you in this empowered state that is just, it's intoxicating. And it's like a moment where a woman can just, stand proud and be the sexual goddess that she is. Because, like I said before, there's a lot of times in our history where women aren't you don't feel comfortable to do that because you're afraid that people are going to call you nasty whore and, look down on you and whatever. And cuckold just smashes those things away. And both parties, the bull and the cuck, are just totally, you know, celebrating you in a way. The bull is getting what he wants, right? He's getting off, but he's also, serving a role for you in a way as a woman. And then, the cuck and his cucky ways. So I'm truly a big fan. I love the psychological landscape of cuckolding is so deep and so, for lack of a better word, evil, but again, it's consensually evil. It's really just a unique sexual experience. And I've found that there are two types of cucks, we'll just call them cucks, that I come across. I come across men that'll say, man, I fucking love cuckold porn. I love your cuckold audios, but man, I could never do it in real life. And that's fine. I love those guys as well because, what you're admitting to me is, yeah, this is all super hot, but for whatever reason in real life, it's just, yeah, it's not for everyone. And then you've got men that are actual cucks. And some of my personal favorites are ones that are married and all they talk about with me as a sex worker is their wife. They fantasize about their wife being their cuckoldress. They fantasize about their wife, taking bigger cock than theirs and how hot it would be to see her, own her sexuality, be slutty. And I think that is so hot. I have a bit of compersion there too, where I find pleasure in other people's pleasure. And it's very arousing for me to witness a husband, worshiping his wife in such a way, finding her so sexy and she doesn't even know it, because they usually these men don't confess this to their wives because they're afraid to or, whatever. Um, but I wish I could just tell their wives, like, your husband thinks you are a sexual goddess. Like, cock him, do it. It's fun. You get to have big dick too. um, so yeah, it's really I love talking cuck with or cuckold to all sorts of people, men and women, because it's just obviously I'm so passionate about it. Now, I also do hypnosis, erotic hypnosis, and cuckold themes. And I think that erotic hypnosis fits cuckold so well because there's such, like I've said before, there's this psychological roller coaster. And erotic hypnosis lends itself to, the whole mind fucking and conditioning and brainwashing. And um, it's actually, to me, one of the most perfect topics or themes within erotic hypnosis because, with cuckold, you're really working against ideals that were built up inside of us by society. Men are supposed to be the breadwinners, men are supposed to be strong and masculine and, be the man of the house. So hypnosis is very good for kind of knocking that down and building back up what that man is wanting to feel and helping him, kind of accept the things that he wants to accept. So if you've not heard my cuckold hypnosis, I highly encourage you. They're always just super like dark. Maybe dark isn't the right word, but very mind fucky. I usually always include, because it works so well, I have my main vocal track where I'm talking about, the hypnotic suggestions and the brainwashing. And then there's always a layer in the background that's moaning. And usually with the cuckold ones, I'll moan and pretend like I'll be at my mic like I am now, and I'm pretending that I'm having sex with a really big masculine man that's huge and girthy, knocking my insides out. And so I'm dirty talking throughout because, again, like I said, one of the triggers for cucks is the dirty talking while a woman's being having sex. And so that's playing in the background. So that lends itself very well because for some cucks, they fantasize about not being in the room and just kind of hearing them through a closed door. So it kind of also for those people that are just cuckold curious, I think hypnosis, role play audios, even porn are great ways to explore the kink because you do it in the safety of your home alone, right? And I feel like the hypnosis really gets you in the mindset. If you're one that just is curious about it, cuck curious. But we're gonna end the episode there. I've been wanting to keep these 30 minutes long, and this one turned out to be 55 minutes. I did not intend it to, but I just love cuckold that much. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I would love for you to comment on this episode, your thoughts of cuckolding, your opinions on it, even if it's something negative. Your negative comments are welcome. If you're not into cuck, let me know and why. I hope I was able to answer why is cuckolding so hot. I hope you were able to understand the common fantasies, what exactly is cuckolding, and I hope I was able to kind of squash any misconceptions that you may have had. Next week, I'm going to cover a very fascinating topic of premature ejaculation as a kink. Can't wait to unpack that one. So until next time, bye. And that's a wrap for this episode of The Slut Next Door, where we dive deep into the raw, unapologetic truths of human desire. If you loved what you heard today, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a juicy moment. Want to connect with me outside the podcast? Click the link in my bio where you can find lots of juicy content and options. Until next time, I'm Beatrix Vale, your Slut Next Door, and I'll see you in the next episode.